to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. Today, we have a guest.
A guest listener.
It's been a long time for a guest because we do what everyone tells us to do. And for a while there, it was like, hey, we want more of Pete and Craig. And now I was getting the sentiment that we needed to have some guests. So back on the podcast is Dr. Trey Miller. But for those of you who have followed every episode, you may not have heard his name before because he was the anonymous doctor. See, Craig, how I got away from saying anonymity?
Well, you just did it. Anonymity.
But he was the anonymous doctor who was thinking about the startup process. If you guys look back on, and maybe Trey, how long ago was that? Maybe 18 months ago?
Yeah, a year and a half.
And the reason we wanted to have Craig on is because we thought there was just so much to unpack here with his process. So, Trey, why don't you explain to everyone kind of who you are, what your process was? You went from associate to jumping out to having COVID to then growing crazy, and just kind of explain your journey. Talking about you were a mastermind. You were in the Bulletproof mastermind this past year as well. So kind of just we'll jump in there, but why don't you just kind of start with who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on again, and good seeing you guys. It's been a little while, and getting used to seeing you on a regular basis, and now it's cold for a while. But yeah, so I'm a dentist in North Carolina, outside of the outskirts of Charlotte, and I was in the northern part of Charlotte in the beginning of my career and worked there for 3 years. And quickly on, I knew I didn't want to probably wasn't going to buy into the practice, even though it was a booming practice. It's a $2.6 million practice with a 55% overhead, and, very well established. And it just wasn't for me. It didn't align with me and my goals and career, ideas and what I wanted to do in life. So I quickly started looking at kind of doing my own thing. And the startup process was definitely more of my personality. It's kind of my mind is something that kind of lived and breathed all based off of me, and everything was on my shoulders. And, it's kind of high risk, high reward, depending on how it goes. And so I kind of jumped in head first and, spent probably 2.5 years kind of planning the process of opening the practice, and went through a lot of different types of crazy scenarios. And there was a lot that happened along the way. It's hard. We're not going to be able to jump into all of it, but we, finally landed on location and planned to open, which of course was May 5th it was actually probably March of last year. And, did lots and lots of planning, lots of preparation, came out to your guys' summit twice, had read tons of books, just planned and planned for this whole process. And then COVID hit, and, kind of threw a wrench in everything. And we had to kind of completely switch gears and change the narrative and change how we did things. And, for me, it was a scary process, and it was a scary moment in time because I had no help, no support, no bank loans, no PPP loans or EIDL. I didn't qualify for any of those types of things. And so, we had to bob and weave and figure it out and do the best we could. And, I had a consulting company that paid probably $65,000 for to help me start up the practice, which I would not be a person they would call as a reference, and I was not very pleased.
You wouldn't be a good testimonial for them.
I would be the last person they would call.
And that was $65,000.
Yeah, 65.
It's startup consulting. You know who it is.
And then
what does it rhyme with? No, I'm kidding. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah. And I've got an NDA on this next one. So even if you guys know, don't say anything. So then they put me in touch with a marketing company that I paid $25,000 for that, when COVID hit, I was like, hey guys, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay you. Like, I literally don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay you. And, so I need to just know how to make some updates to my website to just add little bits of content. And so, I had a 7-page website with, a logo, some flyers that weren't printed yet. And I paid them $25,000. And they were like, no, they're like, no, we'll take care of it for you. I'm like, no, I really don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay you. Like, I need to know how to make some adjustments. Like, no, like you can't do it. I'm like, what do you mean you can't make adjustments? Like, well, I'm like, I want to know how to make adjustments. I paid you $25,000. Like, I want to be able to change some hours or do some things. Well, we don't want you to screw it up. I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'll pay you to fix it if I screw it up. And they're like, no, actually you can't, because you don't own your website. And
okay, I want you to hold right there, Trey. Because there's so many points that I want the listeners to listen to right now.
Wait, we need to back up a few steps.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. Okay. So wait. One thing I want to point out, and this happens very commonly. So you paid $25,000 to a marketing company, and you don't own the URL. You don't actually own your own website. So that is actually extortion.
Extortion.
Because at any given moment, like, yeah, well, I know it's 25,000, but now it's 55,000. And dentists, Peter and I, if we said it one time, so we said it 1,000 times, dentists are getting victimized or taken advantage of, rather, by predatory practices. One such practice is this, and it happens so frequently.
And not only the URL, Craig, but the hosting. So they will do the hosting and then say, well, we actually, if you're not in control of your own hosting, it's dangerous, right? Because it's predicated on your contract with said marketing company.
Right.
So Trey, I know you have some
and then wait, one more thing I want to back into as well. So there's a couple things. So the other thing was $60,000. Trey, I actually didn't know that.
We're going to touch in on this, Craig.
I know. I didn't know that.
Down.
I didn't know that. But you did that. You did these two things before owning a practice. And you did one other thing before owning a practice. And that was you left the Bulletproof Summit the last week of February of 2020. The doors hadn't swung open yet. Your practice wasn't yet opened. And you took one of the 16 spots and enrolled in the mastermind, sight unseen. So I think that just speaks volumes about who you are, that you are willing to, because there's a lot of people that say, oh yeah, I'd love to do it. There's a lot of money, I'm not ready. I don't know if I should invest in that. You literally had not $1 of revenue and you invested. So I think that just speaks.
Well, he used his bank loans for his build out money.
Yes, TI money
to get it. But I agree. It speaks volumes, but let's back up some things. Trey. So, okay, right now you're working as an associate. You recognize that this is not the place for you. What were some of your steps as a diligence thing to doing from a site selection? What did you do for site selection? How did you choose your site?
So we looked at, this was probably the best part of the consulting company. They helped me because at that time it was the very beginning of the process. I'd been practicing for 6 months. So they kind of looked at some numbers with me and kind of told me what was good, what it wasn't. And not that you can't go find that in a book somewhere or go figure that yourself, but at that time I just didn't know. So, you
can't do site selection from a book, just to be clear.
True. Okay. Yeah. So they had run some numbers for me, but there's other ways you can get those same numbers. We found a location that had a high median household income. I mean, it was, the median household income in a 3 to 5 mile radius is about $115,000, which is pretty good. Anything north of 90 is pretty good. Actually we looked at the dentist to population ratio, and it wasn't great here. I mean, there's probably within,
what was it?
1 to 1,800.
Oh, wow. That is low. Okay. All right, great. But this is great because those of you who are listening along, you're going to see the end result. We're saving the punchline of how tremendous Trey did by reaching out, by branching out. We're going to share some of those statistics. But yes, if I had seen it a 1 to 1,800, I would have probably even been like, maybe not. I don't know if I like this, but
the key was that what for me is that, and I didn't know this, first practice I've ever opened, and I didn't know this, but it's not so much the numbers, but it's how sophisticated are those practices as well. Some of them are well established and aren't actively marketing. The number one Google review leader had like 181 Google reviews at the time, and so that's within like a probably a 3 mile radius. And so their websites weren't that sophisticated. So the whole thing, what kind of played off of
all the competition is not equal, is what you're saying, right? Some people are just not even playing the game. Craig, I'm about to tell you something that maybe you didn't even know. Craig and I got to know Trey through coming to a lot of our summits, but Trey and I would communicate offline even before, just on phone calls, even before the summit took place. And Trey was one of those people that, I'm good at picking out. I know winners, and just talking to him. And Craig, I don't even know if I told you this, but when he was going to branch out, he was kind of freaked out about the money and I said, look, I'll be your partner. I'll be your capital partner because you're going to win. You're going to win the dental game. And I'd like to, if you want me to hitch my wagon to you, I'm more than happy to invest in that. And ultimately, Trey, I forget what happened. I think maybe at the last stage in the game, I was like, dude, you don't need me. You don't need me.
I remember that.
Well, we were
working a lot, like going over like really long-term strategic plans and firing back and forth long documents. I was sent some of those documents. I remember.
Yeah. Okay. So, Trey, what were some of the things that you did? Okay, so site selections from a diligence perspective. Then you found your site, and let's dig into kind of your prep and how you got ready pre-opening. And so you actually opened the doors, March 20th?
No, it was technically May 5th was when
May 5th, because COVID, you were about to open and then COVID put a smackdown on it. Got it. But you joined the mastermind in March of 2020, right? So like Craig was saying, you took your build out money, took one more leap of faith into a company, because you've been shit on twice before now with a marketing company and a startup consultant.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Let me trust these guys with another $30,000 investment. Yeah. And then you have COVID hit. And so I remember seeing the panic in your eye and having to be like, dude, it's going to be okay. I promise you this was the best investment. You're not going to get screwed. So talk through that a little bit, buddy.
Yeah. So I, pre-COVID, the things that I were doing was, just the organic Facebook lives, just whatever you could do. I exploited my kids any chance I got. I put them on and, asked my kid, he lost a tooth. So I asked him, we asked Alexa, how much is the going rate for a tooth, which was a big hit. Just any little thing we could do. I was doing a lot of ground marketing. This is again before pre-COVID. I just literally cold walk into practices or locations, and it was I would work on things like, what am I wearing? Like if I walk in looking like a business salesman, no one would give me pay me any attention. About walking in scrubs. Yeah, scrubs. If I had my name on it, it'd be even better. But
I think I told you that. I was like, what are you going in? You're like, I'm going in a coat and tie. I was like, going with scrubs, dude. Going with scrubs.
It was like dramatic. And like, I swear it's like 50% of the time when I walk in scrubs, I'd walk out with somebody's name and phone number. Like
that used to happen at the bars for me too, Trey. I used to go to the bars in scrubs, and half the time I would walk out with phone numbers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Craig. Craig, go ahead. That was a layup. Go ahead. Jump in there, buddy.
I know. That's how you met Stanley. I remember that. Yeah. Just like every time Peter gives me a layup, I'm going to dunk on him. I have to. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But that was like the physical pieces of it. But there were, I was diligent about, getting as much systems in place, or learning how to run a business, or learning how to, the details of, things like I had like 4 ways to answer a phone call from, all kinds of things, or, or like financial policies, or using things like compassionate finance and how we were going to do it, and the details of how to make that work. Just all of the little details that just set us up to be able to kind of hit the ground running. And that's what took a lot of time. And I thought I prepared a lot for it. And when it really came down to it, I still felt like a fish out of water. And so it doesn't matter how much. Right?
You didn't know what you were doing yet because you hadn't gotten into the game. And right. Did you negotiate your own lease? I know that you didn't buy, so I'm going to go there. But did you negotiate your own lease?
I used a third party, not the consulting company, but someone they put me in touch with. Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Okay. And so how big is your operation now? What did you, when you did a build out, what did you build?
We got 2,400 square. Yeah. 2,400 square feet, 7 potential ops, and I squeezed them into 2,400 square feet.
Okay, 2,400 square feet with 7 operatories. Okay, so you're right at about 350 per op is the math.
I outfitted 3. Yeah,
and you outfitted 3 to start.
Just 3 to start. Yeah, everyone pushed me to do 2, And I was like, no, I'm going to do 3. I'm going to squeeze this budget and do 3 to start.
When you say everybody, was that me included?
No. I don't know if I don't think I ever asked you that.
You didn't.
Detail.
So where are you now? So you built out 3, and where are you now?
I'm at 6 now. I'd add a 7th, but we're currently expanding. So we've got, which is, part of the whole thing here, but we're expanding to potentially having a 14 op practice. So immediately have 11 ops in July, and then we'll be able to retrofit our current waiting room into 3 more to have a 14 op practice in 4,800 square feet.
So let's just back up. Let's pause for a second. So right now you just told us that you're probably you're expanding into a 14 op practice, and almost a year ago you were in straight up pandemonium mode, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all worked, right? But you more so. You have 2 young children, a wife.
Well, also not qualifying for any of the aid.
And
a lot of people were
for
panicked until they got their PPP and healthcare provider relief and stuff like that. That's the big part. You couldn't qualify for any.
So, do you think fear was a big motivator for you, pal?
Oh yeah. And for me, that's how when I get in those modes, that's what that fuels me. Those high adrenaline, high fear, high anxiety. It's just when I it's when I kick it into a whole nother gear. And, sometimes I look for that even just to really push me. And so, and it helped. And even COVID, I kept telling my team over and over and over, like, COVID's going to be the best thing ever happened to us. And it was on a lot of fronts. And I, was able to take advantage of a lot of different opportunities from it. And,
so are you comfortable talking about your levels of production? And we're not even at your year mark. I guess we're 5 days away. We're recording this on the 26th of April. So are you comfortable in giving people a scope of your success and a 1 year caliber from a 12-month event?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we so at the end, right now to date, I ran the numbers. We've collected.
Before you say it, because we, as part of the mastermind group, we had you fill out a form in February so in your case, before your practice had opened, before understanding COVID was going to shut you down for whatever amount of months, you wrote down what your collection goal was meant to be, and what was that? I could pull it up if you need it, but I'm sure you remember it.
Yeah, million collections.
$1 million. So you haven't joined the mastermind yet. You just joined it rather. We haven't had our first session. You don't know COVID's coming. You don't know COVID's going to shut you down and the world down. And you have $1 million collection goal. Okay, now go ahead.
Yeah, so we ended up hitting $1 million, little short of 10 and a half months. So it was like 10 months in a week. And then today, by May 5th, we'll clear 1.3 by May 5th. So now
30% above your goal. Your goal.
We're at 1,285,000, I think, right now. And then so we should clear that. We'll clear 1.3 pretty easy because we're open on Saturdays as well. So we've got the rest of this week and then Monday, Tuesday of next week. So we've got quite a few more days. And I forgot this. We still have, we use a lot of compassion finance too on top of that. So I think there's like 115,000 compassion finance, probably 100,000 in interest payments owed too. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
So what do you think has been, now that you've had a year under your belt and you've had you've had the scars and the fear and the things, what do you think was the secret sauce that led you? Obviously you're driven. Fear is not an option for you as I'm looking at your intake form here from the mastermind, like Craig is saying. And I'm sorry, failure is not an option, not fear. What do you think? What was in a crowded market? Technically, you were in a crowded market. So, what do you think was the special sauce?
I mean, I personally don't think there was any one thing. First of all, let me just say this show was hard. Like, this was hard. It was not. I mean, there was no cookbook. There's no recipe. There's there's nothing to kind of go do this, then do this, then do this. It's you've got to be able to get in and grind every day, 6-7 days a week. I mean, long hours. I mean, you've got to have you've got to have your personal finances in check. Like they've got to be under control, low, everything you can possibly do. I've eaten peanut butter and jellies for a year. My first year, I paid myself like 12 grand. So this is not all like roses. For everybody, because I saved as much money as I could, because if I was going to build this expansion, I was going to do it with cash if I absolutely had to. And so, the other thing, you need to make sure your marriage is in check, because it's hard. It's a hard road, and you can hit the easier button if that's something that you want to do, and not make this what I push myself to do. And so I guess if you look at it all, number one, you got to have a great team. I couldn't have done this without a great team, and I've got a fantastic team. Holy cow. Any doctor in the country would love to walk in here and work with the group of people that I have, because you can't do it by yourself. Not even close. And so that would be number one: make a great team, make a great environment. I have a saying, we want to give great people a great place to work, and that's kind of our number one thing that we try and do here. It's simple, it's easy. It's kind of the Make America Great Easy slogan. It resonates with everybody. So that would be one. Just get ready for it. Get ready to grind this thing out. Because that's the secret sauce. Pull patients from any direction, any location you possibly can, and be willing to give them a great experience. And that's number one. All that.
I think there's some more things than that. Is that
yeah?
There's more to it than that. Right? Yes, you were unafraid to grind, and I remember getting text message from you saying, "Dude, I don't know if I can do this anymore." Right? Sure. Like it's just gonna be. I'm gonna have a meltdown. I'm gonna have a breakdown. And you're right. Like what people may take away in the beginning was like, "Wow, he did 1.3 his first year as a startup. Like that sounds like I want that." But it's a gut check time. Do you have the capacity? Do you have a stable, like you're saying, your home front? Is it stable enough to do that? Are you willing to make the sacrifices? Because having $1.3 million doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're now driving a Porsche, or a Ferrari. You are still sacrificing for a longer term gain. But now you have the vehicle motion. So you put in credits into your bucket that that later on you'll be able to take out. And maybe it's not for the next 5 years, maybe it's not for 10 years, but you're building something. And sometimes we all forget that it's not that immediate satisfaction. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, we all want it now. We want it now. So yeah, I'm glad that you touched on that, Trey, because 1.3 does not mean Trey is now buying a mansion and living large, right? You're still putting in the work, and that's important. And you've had a couple meltdowns and breakdowns along the way, right? You had to gut check yourself, because it would have been way easier for you to be the associate, but you were making great money as an associate, great money, right? And you actually took a pay cut temporarily to do this. And so, but it's what you wanted, and it was your why, and you knew that, like we always talk about in kind of the vision creation. Another thing that you did.
I want to add something to that too. For you, Trey, it was the right thing for you to do. And I think that unfortunately in dentistry, we give everybody the same prescription. Here's the right thing for every dentist to do. The right thing, and the prescription oftentimes says the right thing for a dentist to do is to go out and do what you did. And it's just not right for everyone. A little bit of context and background. You're a professional cyclist. You're used to pain and dedication. To be a professional athlete. I read Lance Armstrong's book. I know enough about cycling to know that it's who can tolerate pain more. That's what really endurance cycling, what Lance says. Lance is like, it's a pain fest. It's not who can tolerate pain long enough. So you are built to tolerate pain. It's in your DNA. And I think it's great that you did what you did, but in no way should this be this blanket prescription for everybody listening to this. More often than not, in my anecdotal experience, I meet dentists who actually have a $1 million practice, and their overhead is such that their production, they're actually making 15 and 20% of their production. They would be and they hate running a business. They hate leading a team. They're always complaining about their hygienist. And for them, they chose the wrong prescription for their life. So kudos to you for knowing yourself. And we drilled into you, at least I did, because Peter got to know you. I'm like, well, what do you really want? What do you really want? What do you really want? And then through all that, you're like, this is what you really want. And I think most people don't ponder that question. They don't know themselves and they just jump. And there's going to be a lot of people like, oh shit, Trey did that? Oh damn, I'm going to do that too. Yeah, I mean, I'm making 300 grand as an associate, but you know what? I could be Trey. You can't be Trey. You gotta be all of Trey. There's a unique set of character traits that you have, and you gotta know yourself. If it's for a little, I would venture to say that you'd be happier as an owner of your practice making less money than as an associate where you couldn't control your outcome because you're just that type of person.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like this is hard. It's hard. I don't care if you're going to do a startup or own your own practice. I mean, however hard you think it is, you can multiply that by 2, 3, and that's what you can expect. And you're
saying that, Trey, no amount of preparation can prepare you, kind of thing.
No, I feel like I was probably prepared more than anybody that I probably at one of the top percentages, and I still felt like I wasn't fully prepared, because there's just things you can't get prepared for. There's situations that are going to come up with your team that there's things like COVID, and what do you do with it? There's there's all kinds of things to that you can never account for and understand how it's fully going to work until you actually open your doors. And so, I mean, I think if you go in the mindset of I'm never prepared, then you're always going to be at the maximum amount of prepared that you can possibly be with any given set of time that you have to work on it.
Yeah. And I also think too that the amount of energy that you put into your practice is the reason why you're rewarded for it. There's an equal, maybe I would venture to say that the dentistry is less effort than the ownership. What you lie in bed awake at night is not your margin. It's all related to the decisions of scale that you've decided to make. And I'd also venture to say that if you were the associate and you took all that energy that you've put in to growing your business into other growing businesses, real estate development, for example, or something else, you would be also having a massive return. So I think a question for the audience to ask themselves is, do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I want to be a dental entrepreneur? Because, for guys like the three of us, if something happens to our practice or practices, we have no diversity. Our income and our assets are tied 1-to-1. Whereas the Trey that's a rock star out there that's making 300-400 grand as an associate, he could put all this effort, the amount of effort that the three of us put into our businesses, into real estate development. And now it's also, and I'm just talking entrepreneurial and return on investment. There's another subset of return on investment that comes where your income and your assets are now deleveraged and unhooked from each other. And it's a cool idea as well. So I think, and the reason why I'm saying this is if you are the entrepreneur and you want to do it, there's many outlets. It's not just a dental entrepreneur.
Well, it's a way of thinking too, and I think that was a big part of what us kind of took some of the ceiling off of this. I'm not depending on a paycheck from this practice, or I'm taking as little as I possibly can to be able to survive with our family. And so when you do that, your mindset completely changes whenever you have a $2,000 expense come up that you weren't prepared for, or you've got to add a $25,000 treatment room that it's not an expense. For me, it's a way to grow and expand and make more money, not let me squeeze every dollar that I can out of this practice. Because if I'd have squeezed it, I'd be sitting, maybe at one right at $1 million somewhere or under, I think. But I'm focused in what's the long-term goal, what's the biggest revenue, and our overhead still really good and in check. I mean, we're at a 60% overhead. I mean, which is fantastic. I've added 3 more treatment rooms on top of it. So it's all of those pieces that have allowed, that type of growth and expansion, but it's a big mindset too, and how you think about your money. My opinion.
I agree.
Ray, where are you currently with new patients?
So I did an average. I think we averaged. We get a lot of new patients. I think we averaged for the year each month 126 new patients a month. And
For the year, okay. And what are you currently like tracking as of right now? Let's take the last month.
Last month we were at 176, and this month we're at 100, and we'll probably be around that again this month. But we've added another doctor. We've added more hours and times available, and it's kind of.
Yeah. So the thing with that is that obviously you had good intake, you had good inflows, and that didn't happen by mistake. You were in a competitive area, but yet now you're averaging 175 or plus new patients a month, and you've been able to step on the gas and keep stepping on the gas, right, through expansion. What would you say has been the biggest contributor to the interest that's been generated for your practice, right? Meaning the new patient flow.
So it's kind of changed through time a little, but number one, the biggest thing we focused on was Google reviews. I mean, 100%. I mean, my biggest goal for the team was, I wanted to have one more 5-star review than the next closest practice around in a year, and we topped that. We topped that this year, and so or last month we topped that. And, Google reviews for me drives everything. It drives, how Google ranks you on keyword searches. It drives patients' acceptance, and people come in and they'll say things like, "Oh, well, I trust you." And I'm like, "You've never met me before." And they're like, "Oh, I read all the Google reviews." And so
what's your process for acquiring them, Trey? Just real quick, if you have one.
So I use a company called Flex that does our patient our patient forms, and the only reason I really use them is because they'll send a text message after the appointment. Just in it, I think most people probably use it as like a thank you for coming, or not at all. You can just toggle it on or off. Well, in that, I kind of stole a line from Tim McNamara. It said, if you had a great experience, it'd be really helpful if you left us a Google review, and then left a shortened link, using White Spark.
Yeah, using the tool that we had on Darren.
The review
Darren
generator.
Shaw. Yeah,
the review URL generator.
That's a game changer because it sends people right to the stars. But anyway, keep going, bud.
So we just send that an hour afterwards. We were doing it, we tried different time frames. We wanted them to get home after they've had, their treatment done, and we just send them that link, and then that's all we do. And we ask for them. We ask for Google reviews. It's something we do, but and that's it. That's what's generated we have 192 Google reviews at this point. Probably.
Do you know how you get 192 really bad Google reviews? By the way, ask for reviews and provide shitty service. So just want everybody to hear that it's not the easy button. Google reviews highlight your culture. It highlights the work you're already doing. So a lot of people are the biggest kept secret, and that's good for them because their reviews, people don't talk about them. They're not doing good, and they're not talking about them, which is actually helpful. So you have to really be iconic before you get, iconic reviews.
So that was number one. That was what we focused on day one. That and Hygiene Recall. I mean, those were the two things. I had to break down any two things. Those were number one, number two. Making sure that people had appointments after every time they left. And we just hammered those things in over and over and over. And what we started finding is people who read the Google reviews were more likely to leave you a Google review. So it just kind of escalated from there. So that was one. As far as like internal focus. And then, for me, I was going from having a $4,000 to $6,000 marketing expense. And then I went to not having marketing. And so, cause I fired my marketing company. And I had a guy.
Story a little bit. That was fun because I helped, I remember being aggro with you on that.
Yeah.
Tell the whole story. Cause I think it's interesting because
still have that email. So I back to the marketing company. We're about a month before about to open. the shit hits the fan with the marketing company. And when I find out I don't own my website, I'm like, all right, I'm done. We're calling lawyers. It got pretty bad pretty quick. And we both finally agreed to kind of part both ways. In the meantime, I had somebody that I found on upworks.com that create me a website. So, in 7 days, he created me a 7-page website that looks better. And then the day that we agreed to part ways, I just pointed my domain from my current, which I did own my domain, thank goodness, pointed it from that website to this new one. It went live. We said, see you later to the marketing company. And now I've got, $4 or $5 grand a month to spend on marketing. COVID's hit, so I don't have, I've got time on my hands, and other than having bi-weekly meetings with my team to get them prepared to take away the several weeks of training that we were going to have, we did it all via Zoom before we even opened. So they were ready to go day one, and actually we were going to have a week worth of training, but day 2 the phone started ringing, so we just started going. And then, but back to that, so I've got this amount of money that I'd been spending every month that now I get to use however I want. So I dove into Google Ads because, my website's on page 10 of Google review on Google when you do a search for any keyword search. So I've got to find people a way to find me and come in the door. So that was the first one. And I took a course in, Google Ads, and you guys know this, but took a course on Google Ads and learned how to do my own Google Ads. And instead of paying a company,
Trey, sorry, I know the answers to some of these, but I think it's good context for people to know. So you jumped in and you said, look, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I had a marketing company. I got taken advantage of because I really don't know what I'm doing. And I said, Trey, regardless of whether or not you do your marketing going forward, you need to become educated about the terms and the methodology of what people do. So I said, go take this course on Udemy, right? Yeah. So I just didn't want you to gloss over because you put in the work is where I'm going with this.
Yeah. So I took a course on Udemy. It's Udemy. I believe udemy.com. And these courses, they're like $10-12. I think they're extremely cheap. You get constant updates. You got it for the rest of your life. And so, I took this course, Google Ads course, and it gave me a really good foundation and principles to be able to run my own Google Ads. I actually don't do a lot of what was in it, but at least let me set it up because guy was doing it for like apparel, like Nike shoes. And that's a lot different market than what we're in, but it let me set it up. It got my feet wet. I ran some ads and, I was spending $20 to $50 a day in the very beginning. And I was just to see if it worked. And let me just see if it worked. And it worked. It worked like a charm. But what I started noticing and started analyzing it, and I started realizing what was working. And what I found is that, there's a small niche at the time of emergency dentistry that needed to be, that was really cheap for me to market for and really great returns. And what did we have? We had capacity at the very beginning. We had capacity, we had time. And I was searching for all the people. There are two types of people: the emergency patient and the patient that just wanted to get in and get their teeth cleaned. And I was trying to gobble up all these 3 months of patients that all these other practices in this area had that couldn't get them in any reasonable amount of time because they were so backed up and so backlogged. And I just wanted the chance to get them in the door to see our brand new, clean, state-of-the-art facility and to give them a wow experience from a team that knew what they were doing, even though we were absolutely brand new because we spent those 2 months working on exactly making us look like we didn't know what we were doing, which whether we did or didn't, we made it look like it. And so once I found that with emergency ads, and you think about it, it's like, okay, if I call it $100 a day, I get one patient a day out of a Google ad on emergency. Call it an extraction. You get one extraction out of that. It's a exam, X-ray, $300 extraction. You're looking at a $400 or $500 procedure. I get one of those a week. It pays my Google ads. And so for us, we're open Wednesday through Saturday at the time. I mean, holy cow, Saturday, I could market for pennies. I mean, dollars, because nobody's open on Saturdays and everybody turns their Google ads off. So I mean, Saturdays would just go insane for us. We'd see 5 or 6 patients on a Saturday. And now, so anyway, so I just doubled down on that. And now today, what's nice is I've got it all turned off just about, because I don't need it. I don't use that avenue of collecting patients and new patients, because we're working on internal patients now and squeezing those internal referrals and different more quality, not I don't mean quality, but like those long-term patients, not the one-time patients that come in for problems. So
yeah, you got to a place where you look, that's the holy grail, where you get to a critical mass of inflection point where you have enough patients where a big portion becomes a referral basis for the next and next and next, right? So you dug into Google Ads, which we've talked about at length kind of, but you also got into really producing some videos. I'm looking at you dug into that too, because you saw that leaving some success for yourself. You said, all right, leaving some crumbs for success, I should say. You said, oh, this is kind of working too. And I started to see you dig into that. I mean, a couple of your videos, you've got 5,000 views, and you just started creating content and storytelling marketing. Look, here's a video that a smile makes the difference, all the things you've been doing. So you all this to say, you just didn't pop up an ad and hope and pray. You kept digging in, you kept titrating, you kept monitoring, your ads on a Saturday, and you did it from a analytical perspective. What's working, what's not? Double down on this. Let's stop this. And you did it smart.
So then, so that drove, the initial part drove the initial Google reviews, because, you get someone in, get them out of pain, give them their experience, you start picking up some patients, clientele, and which then started building some, patients would come back for cleanings, they would come back for other services, they would get their families in or tell their friends about us. And so, then we started building up some patient base that we then created those videos based off of. So we created these videos and people go and watch those videos, which are, some of them are just emotional. Some of them are about my family. Some of them are about, smile reveals. Some of them are about anything we could think of that could hold a patient's story, which then drove people to our Google reviews, which then drove people to just a nice website, which drove them to picking up the phone and calling. So it's kind of having those, you just get those revolving doors.
It wasn't just a nice website. What it was a doctor who was friendly. He was talking on there. You were actually the talent on your website, which is a lot of people, what people want to and need to see. They need to see, is this doctor going to hurt me? Is he compassionate with his patients? Like, you did all of that stuff. Which I always tell dentists, I'm like, you got to get at least your picture on the damn website.
Yeah, no more stock images.
No more stock images, right? And do some videos where you're actually being you. Right? Who cares about if it's perfect production quality? Who cares?
I know people get in their way with that. They don't like the way it's the same kind of problem. So average dentist, typical dentist, unfortunately does not like the way they sound or look on video, and they don't do it. So it's really, unfortunate, because it's not really about you. It's like, if you believe in your ability to help people and you feel like you're the biggest kept secret, that's a you problem. You need to get out of your own way. I mean, who are you? Why did you choose to become a dentist? So I think that I deal with a lot of people that I just don't like the way I sound on video. It's not about you. It's like, why did you become it? I mean, even the simplest selfie style video of, I became a dentist because I love to help people. I love to serve the community. I'm married or I'm not married, my husband, my wife, whatever, just anything, because people are scared shitless to go to the dentist, and anything they can consume before seeing you is a massive value add. And there's so many dentists that just pull up the stock images, happy lady eating salad, it's just crazy. The lowest hanging fruit here.
So one of our best videos I shot with my iPhone, and all the pieces of it, I pulled in these, it was late at night, and I pulled in these lamps and just to get me some light, because the lighting was terrible. And, and I shot it, and my wife and 2 kids spent maybe an hour trying to get this one cohesive shot of us. We had stuff that we were going to say and blah, 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 or I was going to say, and it was the worst experience ever. The kids were awful. Like, they were tired and hungry, and they did not want to be there. But there's one little piece of it where I'm holding my daughter and she's like playing with my face. And then my son's doing this goofy wave saying like, "Hoy there." And we use that intro into one of our videos. And it is by far just been, because it's this real moment. People want to see that you're real, that you're normal, that you're this normal person and that they can relate to you. And, like my bio on my website was like, we made it ridiculously long and looked for any touch points that we could have with people. I cycling, I played baseball growing up, anything, my parents, my blue collar parents and jobs that they did. And, anything about yourself that could be a touch point for someone, because that's what people care about. They want to know you're real. They want to know that you're normal and that you're just like them. And we just happen to take care of your teeth.
Well, I mean, listen, nothing's more personal than a dentist. I mean, we're literally up in your space. So we take it for granted because it's just normal for us to hover 6 or 8 inches above someone's face. For many Americans, going to the dentist ranks as their most fear-inducing thing. Outside of public speaking, it's like dentist. And just to be able to see a 30-second or 1-minute clip of your dentist prior is huge. So we had an associate that was applying for a job here about a year ago. And I scout, I just Googled, this person's name. And she just happened to have won a Pankey Scholarship Award, like when she was a freshman. So in her class, she got the academic scholarship to attend Pankey. And Pankey required a 2-minute video submission. And it wasn't publicly listed, but I found the video. And it was just her saying why I became a dentist. And instantly, I'd Google everybody, when you're trying to gather information, anybody looking for a job. And that video alone, I'm like, I found that video, and that was like, boom. It just jumps you so far ahead. So if I'm looking for a dentist in your area, in your particular area, and I have just 5 videos, I could just see you and just know who you are. I may not like everything I see about you or whatever, but at least you rather deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't. And just saying he looks like a nice guy, he's married or she's married, or she seems nice, or they can talk nicely. I'm okay with that. I'm no longer scared. I know, my friend Diane said, go see Dr. Diane or whatever, Dr. Jones. I'm just going to go to this guy because I at least know them. And we have Meet the Provider videos that we're shooting out now. Dr. Liesel did a Meet the Provider. It was like 1,500 clicks in our area. Just Meet the Provider. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, that was huge. And, and back to that whole circle, it just all revolves to find some touch point to get them to pick up that phone, which was probably the next biggest thing. Like, they've got to have a great first impression of that practice, and someone who's knowledgeable and understands what's going on, understands financial policies, and can get them in the door. And then that's when the whole internal piece of it and magic really begins to happen.
Yes, sir.
You
So
also
true.
do some things, and then we'll get to a point where we can wrap, because I know you got things to do today, bud. But you started building your culture, even your team culture, from an early, when it was a 2-person team, right? I mean, it starts because you didn't want to wait till you got to a critical mass and say, all right, well, now let's be a company now and let's do some things. Like even your morning meetings, you set the tone of the day correct. And the fact that you do morning meetings, which a lot of people do not, which is weird. You actually brought some cool energy. Tell that story.
So we don't do it anymore because we switched our speaker system. We're trying to figure out how to get this
Tell
song
me something good.
Yeah. So I was finding, we were starting to add people, and, I was getting like, all right, let's find a way to get things up and running, get people excited. And 2, I was tired of like herding people to the morning meeting every morning. Like, I'm like, all right. So I started playing the Shaka Khan song, the Tell Me Something Good song, to kind of start our day. And we'd go have our morning meeting and we'd talk about something good. And that's how every day started. And new people that came thought it was funny, and they'd ask, well, what is that, or why is he playing that? And then they figure it out because it's got that funky beat and that funky intro. And so that was a fun one that we did. And I'm big on, just going around and, trying to find one or two people a day and just, picking something good that they did out on like a one-on-one personal basis. So just telling them like, hey, good job there. Or, hey, great job closing that case. Or, you did a really good job on something today or something we didn't have problems with. And, that type of culture and growth really started to kind of grow on itself. And I'll address problems as soon as they happen. Like as soon as something happens or as soon as someone gets a little nippy now, because we've got a lot of people that work here now. I mean, we've got probably 12 or 13, either full-time or permanent part-time people that work here. And so like if something gets started, we just pull it aside, address it, and move on. But those are all things I guess people have grown and it's just the culture of having a great place to work. Again, giving great people a great place to work, and like if you're not great, you don't work here, and vice versa. And so,
and also, so these are the cool, like I look at like having a great place to work or creating a kind of culture or great culture or working hard to build a practice. People hear that stuff and then they say, okay, I want to build great culture. How do I do that? And the answer is really, really, really hard. That's the problem. So, I have the pleasure of knowing you for a while now and talking to you about a lot of different issues that have hit come across the bow for you over the last year. And the unfortunate answer for those listening is that it really requires you to have exceptional character. And I know your character. You've had to navigate some tricky situations in your 1 year of practice ownership it was like character is what you do when no one else is watching. And I was the one that was watching because you had to ask Peter and I about these things like, hey, this is coming up. I'm like, what do you think you should do? And you always did the right thing. You have integrity. So if you want to have a great place to work, you have to be a great person to work for. And until you start figuring that out and the hard stuff that comes with it, you can't fake it. You'll always have a reset. You can fake it and you'll build a culture, but it'll be built on styrofoam. And then one thing that hits and they see who you really are, it crumbles to the ground. But if you're a really great leader and you have your own character set, you're building on stone. And I think that's a lesson that I've learned over time. This fake it until you make it, because we're all frauds in some area of our life, but you better backfill in that inauthenticity with some bricks of good character. So I think that culture is great. And I say again, you're a special person, and I mean that as a compliment, but also as a warning to those who are not really that way. I have a friend of mine that was just lured into an associateship. I don't blame. He wasn't lured. I guess he fooled himself. But the promise was 35% of collections, 35% lab bill, and you're going to be an owner. And the owner of the practice already had a Ferrari, and it looked all great, and everything is cool. 2 months later, it's really 18% and nothing there. They were giving him 35%, but then a 12% management fee on top. So imagine you collect a crown and you have the lab bill, and then you get a 12% management fee on top of all that on your associate wage.
Whoops.
Yeah. So, the easy, and I think we do ourselves a disservice in this consulting space. I'm using finger quotes for those who are listening, because I guess we're all consulting right now, telling everybody how easy it is. And it's fine if it's what you want. Just know yourself and know that when people work for you, you're under a magnifying glass, and you better have really exceptional character. And you better not react, and you better not be that guy that says, oh, you know how assistants are, and hygiene. I know how you treat your people, Trey. I know how you are. Any questionable integrity, any question of anything, and you are black and white. You're like, you've said it to me before. At a principle, I'm letting this. At a principle, I'm doing. At a principle, I'm doing that. So, I mean, it's your character. It's cool, but it's also you're special. And I say that as a great thing for you, but also as a warning for those that are not. And just because that's where you are right now, for those listening, you can change your character. I mean, I'm reading a fantastic book. I don't know if I told you about it. How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. It's a story of Marcus Aurelius. He was like the last of the emperors that was a Stoic. And I mean, geez, what amazing things that these people had to tolerate. You figure they're emperors, they could do whatever they want, but the guy had to eat so many shit sandwiches all along the way, and still never tested it. And he tested his character, and it was very hard for these people. But I don't know where I came up with all that, but Anyway, ground me somehow. Can we make this relevant? Can you close me out, Peter?
Yeah. So Trey, Craig does this, as you know. He goes on his wild rants, and I think what's most burning for me is like, what did you learn? Like, how are you more sophisticated now than you were? What was your big takeaway from the year of 2020 or the past 12 months? What did you learn that you didn't know going into it? And then what's next for you? Like, where are you headed?
So what I learned is that I'm not the best at everything. In the beginning, I think in the beginning you have to wear, most of the hats. You just have to now. But there's also things that I refuse to do. Like I use open dental, and I refuse to learn open dental because I had so much going on, which some people may not agree with. But people come ask me, how do I do this? And I'd say things like, I'm like, I don't know, go Google it, and they'd figure it out. I'd make them figure it out. And so for me, I'm learning how to, develop the team so that the team can then take care of the practice, because they're much better at a lot of other things than me as one person. So, I'm trying to back away and kind of check in and delegate with each individual people on key positions. So hire the right people, and then, kind of like Craig says, get out of the way. And so for me, it's learning that, I'm not the best at everything, and that, to continue to grow. And it's funny, when I started doing that, that's when this practice just exploded. And that's when things really became, profitable and better, and people even enjoyed it even more. So that was number one. I mean, and it's a hard one to do. That would be probably my number one.
Is to learn the art of delegation, or learning how to get out of people's way, or hiring the right team. You said that's your number one.
I'd say learn how to be able to reflect on yourself, and learn how to, realize what you're good at, what you're not good at, and be able to get out of your own way, first of all. And then once you get out of your own way, then learn to let other people, empower other people to take what they're good at and run with it, because they're going to be a lot better at it than you probably are. I mean, on a lot of fronts. And so that would be my number one.
There's so much, and I know we talked about that a lot, and even mastermind discussions is get, the weekly calls of this, and you learning not only from just Craig and myself, but some of the other docs who've been, gone through some of these, and it's really learning the art of delegation, but just learning that it's okay to not be great at everything. And then sometimes we are the bottleneck in our own organizations. I know that I was early on in my career. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to mount TVs. I wanted to sell the treatment. I wanted to enroll. I wanted to try and answer the phones if I could. I wanted to do I wanted to do payroll. I wanted to do everything. Right. And I sucked at a lot of that stuff. And until, like you said, your practice went poof, when you had that revelation of like, man, maybe I'll just focus on being a really good, operator and a good marketer, and doing the things that I like to do, and letting my awesome team do awesome stuff and get out of their way, and give them an objective. And like Craig says, a mission of where we're headed, and then get out of the way and let everyone start rowing together. And that's the power of what I noticed, what started happening in your ecosystem.
And invest in yourself. I mean, it's like me coming out to the summits. I mean, those summits are huge. I mean, look here, it's on my desk. I mean, I've got the freaking manual on my desk. And by the way, the doctor I hired met him this weekend. So where she was this weekend,
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
So what he's showing is the back. Sometimes people don't see the video, Trey. So I'll make sure to. What he's showing is the back of our field manual that you get at Summit. That pretty much has like everything Craig and I ever know about dentistry inside of it. But it has, on the back of it, it has a funny picture of Mike Tyson that has a quote that we think is funny. What does it say, Trey?
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, which is such a truth, right? Yeah. We build these plans, and then all of a sudden you get hit. Like you got gut punched several times along the way, right? You get hit, and all of a sudden, some people fold and curl up and die. Other people say, "Oh shit, I better reevaluate this plan." When I get back up. So
but it was that, you know, investing in those types of things. I mean, I probably spent $100,000 in business type CEs over, you know, the year, 2 years probably. You know, and a lot of it was your podcasts. I mean, you can get a master's in level education just listening to a lot of podcasts, your guys' podcast, or, you know, in the mastermind for me, it was just invaluable. I mean, it's just you know, being involved in a group of people that were, you know, close knit, that all had similar goals and all held each other accountable. And there were a lot of times, you know, I was down and dragging and struggling, and yet it was just, you know, I was wanting to prove myself to this group that I belonged there, and that I could be part of this really incredible group of doctors. So it all went together. And, you know, take the money and invest in yourselves, you know, you know, how to polish your preps, or, you know, there's important pieces of the dentistry and clinical piece of it. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're taking care of people, and we're trying to make people happy. We're creating great teams with good cultures, which that to me is what matters. And yes, you've got to be able to do nice clinical dentistry, and you've got to be able to, you know, perform and use nice labs and cut nice preps, of course. But at the same time, if you're not doing those, you know, if you don't have that team that all comes together, that puts those pieces in place, then none of it really matters. So
100%.
Well said, buddy. Well said.
Have I
Greg?
talked about the book, by the way? And the last book I'm going to talk about, it's The Obstacle is the Path. Have you guys been talking about that yet? It's by my God, I'm so sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I'll put it in the show. Let me drop it in there. It's just been such a good book for me. Another Stoic type philosophy. Naval says something really cool. Naval is always saying that if you have these old problems, like the problems of character and like all the human stuff that we face, the best people to listen to that are learn from are the guys that thought this stuff up for 2,000 years. New problems require new teachers. If you want to learn about Bitcoin, go pick Peter's brain. You want to learn about like the human dilemma and the dilemmas that we all face as leaders and owners and, you know, fathers and wives and parents. That's go to the old philosophers. And it was just amazing. Yeah, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Unbelievable. Just so into that lately. So a little book tip for y'all. That's it. I'm done with my book tips for today.
Trey, it's been appreciate you spending time with us today, buddy, and giving your, you know, we wanted to give this perspective to all the listeners, because I think we get questions throughout, and I think we touched on a lot of what questions we get. And yeah, man, it's been a joy to get to know you, not only as a clinician and entrepreneur, but as a just, you know, a good guy who's leading a family, and just really proud to be able to root from you from the sidelines, bud.
yeah, thank you guys for everything. It's been a wild and crazy ride, but it's been fun. It's been worth it, and I've loved every minute of it. So thank you.
Likewise.
Guys. Yeah.
All right, everybody, we're tuning out, and we'll see you next time.